Titus Kaphar is a master at taking familiar images, those portraits that we've only ever seen one way, and forcing us to look at them differently. For example, his portrait titled Beyond the Myth of Benevolence was inspired by a famous portrait of Thomas Jefferson painted in 1800. But in Titus's version, the portrait is transformed into a curtain that partially covers an enslaved woman. Your eyes are immediately drawn to her brown skin, her green and gold headscarf, and her bare shoulder and leg. Titus says the goal is to shift your gaze.
When I say shifting the gaze, I'm imploring the viewer to set what feels natural aside for a moment and try a different route through the work. And when you do that through a painting, even a familiar painting, you might find something you never expected to find.
By putting black faces into historic art, some argue that Titus Kaphar is trying to erase history.
Let's just think about that. Let's dig into that for a second. How would one go about that? Maybe what one would do is they would ignore the fact that for hundreds of years, there were people who actually were in that moment in history and participated in those battles, in those important historical moments, and they're not being remembered. So the irony of that accusation is that they don't recognize that I'm actually uncovering what was already there.
Whether it's a painting or a sculpture, the Michigan native works to reveal unspoken truths about American history, and it doesn't matter if it happened centuries ago or present day. Titus used a black asphalt background and white chalk to sketch the faces of Trayvon Martin, Amadou Diallo, Sean Bell, and Michael Brown, one on top of the other, to symbolize police brutality. Titus creates much of his work at his studio in Connecticut, but we caught up with him during the unveiling of his commissioned sculpture for the Forgotten Soldier exhibit at the American Revolution Museum at Yorktown. Standing in the center of the room, your eyes are initially drawn to a large mold of George Washington. But Washington is not alone. Standing in front of him, superimposed on the glass, is the image of a black soldier.
My intention is that we see both of these characters at the same time. We have this tendency to kind of write our history thinking about those people sitting on that horse. But there's a lot of other characters, those soldiers on the ground, that actually give their lives for the battles. In this particular exhibition, we're talking about the black soldiers who were by and large forgotten to history, erased from history.
In 2017, he shared his passion for what he does in a TED Talk.
I want to make paintings, I want to make sculptures that are honest, that wrestle with the struggles of our past, but speak to the diversity and the advances of our present.
During that presentation, he used white paint and broad strokes to cover his replica of a painting that showed well-to-do people dressed in expensive clothes and jewelry. When he was done, only the enslaved youth who was standing attentively in the background was clearly seen.
We can look at institutional structural power, and we can look and see the ways in which history has been erased. It hasn't been erased by some random black dude in Connecticut making paintings and putting white paint on it. That ain't how it works.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.